A single bite force of 180,000 newtons, enough to punch through a whale's ribcage like it wasn't there. And yet, we've never found its body, just teeth. For nearly 200 years, everything we thought we knew about Megalodon was built on that, and it was wrong. Here's where it starts. The reason we got Megalodon wrong is because we only have one kind of evidence, teeth. And that's not bad luck, that's biology. Sharks don't have bones. Their entire structure, every fin, every joint is made of cartilage. When it dies, the soft tissue disappears. The cartilage follows. What remains is only what can survive. Teeth. Thousands over a lifetime, millions over millions of years. Triangular, serrated, some as large as 18 centimeters. Found on every continent except Antarctica. Now, here's where the problem starts. In 1835, when scientists formally described Megalodon for the first time, they looked at those teeth and compared them to the teeth of the largest living predatory shark, the great white. The resemblance was undeniable. Same triangular shape, same serrated edges, same basic design. So they drew the only conclusion that seemed logical. Same teeth, same family, same body, just bigger. That assumption became the foundation for everything. Every size estimate, body reconstruction, behavioral models. For 170 years, everything we thought we knew about this animal was built on a single comparison between two sets of teeth, and that comparison was wrong. This is where it breaks. In the early 2000s, researchers finally started measuring the teeth properly, not eyeballing them, running detailed analyses, comparing Megalodon teeth to great white teeth. The results were unambiguous. Great white tooth serrations are irregular and triangular. Megalodons are finer and rounder. No overlap. These weren't minor variations within the same family. They were the product of completely separate evolutionary histories. By 2019, the reclassification was official. Megalodon was removed from the great whites genus, Carcharodon, and placed in its own extinct family, Otodontidae, a lineage that had diverged from the great white's ancestors roughly 100 million years ago. Megalodon and the great white are about as closely related as a dog and a cat, and this changes everything, because now nothing we built holds. This wasn't just a name change, it destroyed the entire analytical framework scientists had been using to reconstruct the animal. Every size estimate, every body shape calculation, every behavioral inference, all built on one premise, that the great white was a valid model for Megalodon. It wasn't, which meant the reconstruction had to start completely over. That was the first problem. The second is worse. There is one Megalodon fossil that changes everything, a partially preserved vertebral column discovered near Antwerp, Belgium. When researchers laid out all 141 vertebrae, end to end, the combined length measured 11.1 meters. That should not be possible, and yet it is. Here's why. In 1996, scientists had already used great white proportions to estimate the total length of this same individual from vertebral diameter alone, and arrived at 9.2 meters for the whole animal. 9.2 meters total length, but the trunk alone is 11.1 meters. That's not an error in methodology, that's a structural impossibility. The part they estimated was smaller than one component of the actual fossil. The great white model wasn't giving slightly wrong answers. It was giving answers that couldn't fit the evidence physically in front of them, which means every reconstruction ever built from those numbers was wrong before it started. So in 2025, paleobiologist Dr. Kenshu Shimada and a team of 28 international scientists tried something completely different. Instead of assuming what it looked like, they compared it to 165 species, extinct and living, and asked which species actually clusters most closely with Megalodon. Not the great white, not even close. The closest match was the lemon shark, Negaprion brevirostris, long, streamlined, built for efficient cruising, not explosive bursts. And when the team ran hydrodynamic modeling, they found that a great white-shaped body at Megalodon scale would have created drag costs so excessive, the animal couldn't have sustained efficient locomotion. The math doesn't allow a body that's stocky at that size. The barrel-chested shape in every museum and every film almost certainly never existed. Megalodon was long, sleek, a different kind of machine entirely. And if the shape was wrong, the size was wrong too. By a margin, that should make your jaw drop. With the body proportions corrected, Shimada's team applied the new framework to the Belgian fossil. Using the new proportions, the total length of that individual comes out to approximately 16.4 meters, nearly twice the previous estimate from the same fossil. But that's not the number. That changes everything. there is a second specimen from the Miocene of Denmark, a single vertebra, 1.484 times larger than the biggest vertebra in the Belgian column. Apply that ratio, 24.3 meters, 80 feet at around 94 metric tons. To put that in a frame you can actually feel. If you parked a blue whale next to this animal, they would be roughly the same length. The blue whale, the largest animal alive today, would be a size match for what we used to think was just a big shark. Now hold that number, because this is where it stops making sense. With a warm-blooded metabolism, an animal that size burns through energy at a rate that has no parallel in the modern ocean. 100,000 calories a day? That's not a number, that's a problem. About 50 times what a human burns every day. No exceptions, no days off. Miss enough meals in a row, and the animal starts consuming itself over a massive amount of prey. Megalodon hunted individual large animals, whales, dolphins, sea turtles, animals that could fight back. The bite force estimates run to approximately 180,000 newtons, far beyond the bite force of a great white. Fossilized whale ribs from this period show impact fractures, consistent with the predator targeting the rib cage directly, not biting around a whale, biting through it. Maximum damage, minimum time. That's not aggression, that's metabolic math. An animal that cannot afford failed hunts develops whatever tools and to hunt as fast as physically possible. But here's the detail that nobody expects. The 2025 study estimates Megalodon's cruising speed at just 2.1 to 3.5 kilometers per hour, slower than a person walking. The largest predator in the history of life, slower than you on foot. And that is not a weakness. The long, streamlined body isn't built for chasing. It's built for covering vast distances at minimum energy cost, conserving every calorie between meals, crossing entire ocean basins, then deploying explosive burst force at the moment of contact. A patrol predator that crossed thousands of kilometers of ocean found something and ended the encounter before the prey had a meaningful chance to respond. The slow cruise and the 180,000 Newton bite aren't contradictions. They're the same strategy, and for 19 million years, it was flawless. But even a flawless strategy has a ceiling, and to understand where that ceiling was, you need to know something about how a megalodon entered the world. The life of a megalodon didn't start small. By reanalyzing growth bands in the Belgian vertebral column, back calculating body length at each annual ring, the 2025 study found that Megalodon was born at approximately 3.6 to 3.9 meters in length. Here's what that means. A fully grown great white reaches about 6 meters at its maximum. A newborn Megalodon was already more than half that on day one. But here's the part that stopped researchers. To produce animals that large, the embryos had to eat something before they were born. Megalodon almost certainly practiced oophagus, intrauterine cannibalism, the strongest embryos consuming unfertilized eggs, and likely their weaker siblings inside the womb. Survival of the fittest as a biological process running in the dark. Months before birth, the ones that made it out had already survived their first predator, and when they entered the ocean, they entered it capable of hunting marine mammals immediately, a nearly 4-meter apex predator on day one, in a world where nothing else its size could reliably threaten it. At 3.9 meters, they didn't need protection, they were the threat. But even with all of this, the size, the efficiency, the birth strategy, the 19 million year track record, there was a flaw built into the system. Not a weakness in the animal, a dependency the animal had no way to anticipate or survive. Megalodon's abundance peaked in the middle Miocene, roughly 11 to 16 million years ago. Warm, shallow coastal waters. Early toothed whales abundant, smaller, faster animals that hadn't yet found a path to gigantism, a food web that could sustain 100,000 daily calories at the top. Then the conditions that built this system began to dissolve. Coastal waters cooled, sea levels fluctuated, disrupting the productive shallow habitats that formed the backbone of Megalodon's hunting range. The prey was changing, faced with food scarcity. A lineage of early whales made one of the most consequential evolutionary decisions in the history of life. They abandoned teeth entirely. They evolved baleen filter plates that let them strain enormous volumes of small prey directly from the water column. They bypassed the predator-prey energy chain and went straight to the base of it. Unlimited food at massive scale, and with no predator left capable of threatening adults, they had no biological reason not to grow. They grew. The prey Megalodon had spent 19 million years developing every tool to catch was becoming something else, something that required enormous energy to attack, and offered diminishing return even when the attack succeeded. The prey it relied on was disappearing. The food wasn't gone. It had transformed into a form the animal's body plan wasn't built to exploit. And into the gap that was opening, something else was filling the space. The emergence of Carcharodon carcharias, the great white shark, at the dawn of the Pliocene, helped drive Megalodon's extinction through competitive exclusion. Not combat, not predation, competition. The great white doesn't need 100,000 calories a day. It operates at a fraction of Megalodon's energy requirement. It's faster, more maneuverable, built precisely for the leaner, cooler ocean that was arriving. Geochemical analysis of teeth from both species. Nitrogen and zinc isotope data shows overlapping trophic positions during the Miocene to Pliocene transition. They were eating the same animals. As food contracted, an animal needing 100,000 daily calories competed directly with one needing a fraction of that. An animal that could carry lean periods against one that structurally could not. The growth data from the Belgian specimen adds the final piece. During the first 7 years of life, Megalodon grew at an average of 37.4 centimeters per year. After that, 26.5 centimeters per year. That early surge corresponds almost exactly to the period when the shark was passing through 6 meters, the approximate maximum size of a great white. Shimada's team interpretation, Megalodon may have evolved rapid early growth specifically to outpace the competitive range of the Carcharodon lineage. Get big enough, fast enough, that competition became irrelevant. For 19 million years, that worked. But when the ocean began rewarding efficiency over scale, the strategy had nowhere left to go. The size that made Megalodon untouchable became the exact reason it couldn't adapt. Every calorie the changing ocean failed to deliver was a debt the animal's own biology had already written. The thing that made it dominant, made it fragile, and the world noticed. The last confirmed Megalodon teeth in the fossil record date to 3.6 million years ago, not 1 million. Not recently, 3.6 million years. And then the signal stops. Modern whale populations carry no bite marks consistent with Megalodon. None. In an ocean, Megalodon had carpeted with thousands of teeth per individual. Over millions of years, there's no trace of continued presence. The ocean didn't defeat it. The ocean changed, and something built to consume nearly a ton of prey every single day found itself in an environment where that appetite was no longer survivable. The blue whale, 30 meters long, the largest animal ever confirmed to have existed on this planet, almost certainly couldn't have reached its current size while Megalodon was alive. Megalodon imposed an evolutionary ceiling on baleen whale growth. The moment it was gone, that ceiling lifted. Unlimited food. No predator capable of threatening adults. Millions of years of open ocean. The largest creature in the history of life exists because the most dominant predator ran out of world. It didn't go extinct because something defeated it. It went extinct because it couldn't exist anymore. And somewhere on the seafloor, right now, one more tooth from one more animal that never got to see the ocean it shaped is still waiting to be found.